Yo. Yes, you read that right. Up to 5 years in prison and a $10,000 fine for using the wrong pronouns. Michigan House approved this hate speech bill, HB 4474, that would criminalize someone who feels threatened by words. I find it absolutely mind-blowing how anybody could be paying attention even the slightest bit at this point and not feel like they're trying to incriminate absolutely any person who thinks differently about the world. This is not about speech. This is not about saving people who feel threatened. This is about being able to incriminate anyone who disagrees with their worldview. Look at the specific text in this bill. If any of the following conditions apply, a person who violates subsection 1 is guilty of a felony, punishable of imprisonment of not more than 5 years or by a fine of not more than $10,000 or both. Threatened by word or act. Threatened by actual or perceived characteristic, including sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, or expression. Look at that. Yo, look at this. In section B, intimidate or harass means continual harassment that causes a reasonable individual to feel harassed. Yo, I'm not a legal scholar, but to intimidate or harass means a willful course of conduct or continuing harassment that makes a person feel harassed. I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. The intentional vagaries of a bill such as this are meant to silence the dissent of absolutely any person for any reason. Because if they can limit your speech on something like this, they can limit your speech on absolutely anything. And when they use intentionally vague language like a person feels harassed or feels in danger or feels threatened, to just reduce it to the ridiculous, that means that I could put on a wig and I could say, I am a woman, and I could walk up to you, and if you repeatedly say that I'm a man when I have this facial hair or whatever else, if I say that this makes me feel intimidated or makes me feel threatened or makes me feel harassed, even if it's not true, I could tie you up in litigation. I could bring charges against you. I could bring a case against you. How are you supposed to validate whether or not someone feels a certain way, especially for things that are biologically and or factually untrue? Now, obviously, this would extend to the internet and the world of things online, and obviously things like this could probably go retroactively into the past. Like if I was to post something or say something in a video, would that be considered repeated if it was shared multiple times? These are intentional vagaries with the intent of silencing dissenting opinions, even on matters of actual facts. Because this goes beyond gender. It goes beyond feeling intimidation or feeling threatened or scared or harassed. You feel harassed because you're harassed, and harassment means being harassed. This eventually could be the same thing except replace a person feeling harassed by their gender to the establishment feeling harassed by your criticism of it. Meaning that if you were to say something that was to say that you disagreed with the actions of the state, that you could be harassing them or making them feel threatened by suggesting that you were going to protest against it, for example, or organize other people to peacefully protest against it. Because even if a protest was intended to be peaceful and you gathered people for the purpose of free speech and free protest, all it would take is a couple of guys in khaki pants and white collared shirts with a mask over their face to go in there and instigate and or create a publicly visible instigation of violence, or maybe violence themselves, and then slowly slip out and slide out after the photos and videos had been taken. And they could say you organized this to intentionally harass, to intentionally cause violence. The playbook is clear, and this is a violation of the First Amendment. It's the first one. And in so many reasons, it's the way and the reason that makes America great in the first place. Our First Amendment is uniquely America and more powerful in protecting the rights of the individual more than any other speech protection for any other individual in the entire world. There are other nations, other countries in the developed world that can arrest a comedian for saying the wrong joke. These laws are on the books now, and they act and pretend like these other countries might be more free, supposedly. Oh, they're on the Freedom Index, look! And this freedom index is this arbitrarily placed garbage figure that means nothing. Because if you don't have the right to speak and dissent against the establishment, then really you have no rights at all. You don't have the right to criticism and ultimately institute change as a result of said criticism. But now they're just pushing through this language under the guise of protecting the individual that has some type of gendy or some type of mental whatever, or maybe even not, depending on how you look at it. But this is punishing speech. So if you were morbidly obese, for example, and your doctor was to repeatedly say, you're morbidly obese, you need to exercise or it's unsafe for your health, theoretically down the line, using the language of such a bill as this, couldn't they say, well, that's threatening, you're intimidating me, you're harassing me, you're repeatedly telling me a thing that is true that makes me feel harassed? Now, I'm drawing an outrageous conclusion, but these are the types of things. It's the frog in boiling water. It's one step at a time, one chip at a time. Because let's not make any mistakes about this. This says you can be fined, jailed, or both. Jailed! And having a felony on your record, even for something as egregious and outrageous as this, can count you out of a lot of opportunities of things you can do in life, and could weigh in on your ability to protect yourself, i.e. 2A, your ability to vote in the future, job opportunities, career opportunities, and a multitude of other things. So if you're a rich person, this fine doesn't really bother you. If you're a rich person and you could go through litigation or put the right attorneys on this, it's highly unlikely that it would pass. But if you were an average middle-of-the-road voter, an average middle-of-the-road citizen, a person that didn't have that much money or that many connections, you could very easily be prosecuted for this, or at the very least have your life ruined. People fail to recognize the slippery slope of these types of rules and these types of laws, these types of bills, this type of language, because of all the plights and all of the issues plaguing the residents of the state of Michigan and so many other people in America. This is what they're pushing through. This is what they're litigating on. This is what they're voting on. This is what they are prioritizing. Because it's not about Michigan. It's about rolling up Gretchen Whitmer, a literal, actual dirt merchant, and heaving her over the line into the state capitol, anointing her via the media, and then coercing her to push stuff like this through if she wants to elevate her career. Because it's not about Gretchen Whitmer. She's just doing the bidding of the elites who anointed her into this position and placed her there, and thus can destroy her whenever she becomes no longer useful. They anoint these politicos by raising them up through the media, using all of their media ties, all of their establishment ties to coerce the public to believing that they are good and demonize the other. They anoint her for the position and let her also know that she can be destroyed by that exact same mechanism. If the media turned on Gretchen Whitmer and told you that the next person was better, that person would win the next election. She has to do the bidding of the globalists that got her there in the first place, or she will be removed. But she has higher aspirations, and this won't be the end of the road for her, as long as she keeps collecting her good boy points, her subservience points. Because this exact same person was the one who banned your ability to purchase paint during the clam dam. She had some of the most egregious lockdown rules imaginable, where you would go to the grocery store and certain aisles would be blocked because of its supposed health risks, while her own family members, aka her husband, were able to blatantly break the exact same rules she was putting in place. And she traveled to other places that had less rules. Because she is nothing more than a face and a name in which to draw your ire. She is just a tool, an instrument. If you look at all of these laws and you look at all of these rules and look at all of the things that are intentionally happening, and instead of looking at them as a policy of Joey Basement or Ayanna Pressley or whomever else, and instead look at it as an orchestrated attack on your individual rights by the global elitists that run the world, the international banking cartels, the financiers, and the people who anoint and destroy these politicians, you realize that it's all part of a coordinated attack on your freedom and thus the freedom of America. The First Amendment is the unique pillar that makes America different than every other place in the entire world. And if they can hop on the backs of the emotionally manipulated protected classes, aka the alphabet people, they can use their loud screaming and squealing and emotionally manipulated state to push these types of things through under the guise of protecting them, saving them from harassment. Because what can be adopted by one state can easily be adopted by any. And the next place that something like this would go would be, I don't know, California, New York, Illinois. So they chip away at one agenda at one state and one agenda at another state. But the governors, the mayors, all of these blue cities and all of these blue states, they're all in concert. They understand the path to political success. Here's an example for you. Think about the television show Saturday Night Live on NBC for the last multiple decades. The parent company and the parent company of NBC owns all of the radio stations, all of the television stations, all of the media publishers, all of the movie houses. They have a pipeline. So you take a relatively obscure and unknown comedian at the early part of their career. You give them an opportunity on Saturday Night Live. If they do Saturday Night Live's bidding, if they do NBC's bidding, and they say the thing that goes against the establishment, or goes against the president, and pushes the party line, they become more of a veteran on SNL. And then when they leave SNL, they become the host of The Tonight Show. They get commercial opportunities, movie opportunities, television opportunities. If they follow along on the predetermined path and collect their good boy points by being subservient to their masters and collecting their paycheck without saying anything, they will be moved up the ladder. And then later on in their career, after they get all the movie roles and become famous, what are they going to do? They go by way of comedians that I love, like Will Ferrell, who was out there canvassing for Beto O'Rourke in Texas. And that, again, helps them collect more good boy points and rise up the ranks. The political pipeline works exactly the same way. They anoint someone like Gretchen Whitmer, slowly slide her up the ranks, get her to push through absolutely any insane thing, and then feed her financial opportunities. Once they sold their soul, they can't bite the hands that feed them. Otherwise, they'll be destroyed by the exact same mechanism that installed them in the first place. These people are nothing more than useful instruments of the exact same people who seek to destroy your freedom, destroy your income, your checkbook, the freedom of you, your family, and future generations, and the promise of what made America great. But more importantly, the threat that America poses to total global control. Because America, with its ability for people to protect themselves and express their ire or their frustration with the government in order to institute change, i.e. First Amendment, there is no longer a threat remaining in the world. And no matter how much freedom they pretend that other nations have, without these two protections specifically, nobody can contend with what the U.S. offers the free world and citizens of it. This, like so many other things, is just one chip away at that exact same promise and dream that America has to offer. And if you can't recognize that, you're not looking close enough, or you're too scared of how they'll destroy you too. The alphabet mafia is being emotionally manipulated to weaponize the actual mafia, the banking mafia, the ruling elite. And people are going to go out there and celebrate Independence Day thinking it's about hot dogs and hamburgers and fireworks, while completely forgetting what the people before us, our ancestors, actually fought for, which is protection from these people.